So for the final 20 minutes, I hope it's exciting. It should be the peak of the show, in my opinion, humble opinion. What we're going to look at is Heather's taken us through four biases. We know there are many more. We do know they manifest themselves in very different ways. But the most common, the outcome of all of this is typically they tend to destroy wealth. Now that's very bad, obviously, for clients, but it's also very bad for you as business owners, as advisors. And so it's through this guide, through this simple but uneasy guide, that we want to introduce you to some tools that will allow you to become better behavioural coaches, mentors, advisors to your clients. And what I want to take you through is 3 common scenarios and some tools and techniques you can use to help overcome some of these biases with your clients. So what are the 3 I'm going to take you through? First one, clients chasing short-term returns is obviously very common. Second, clients looking to abandon their long-term plans, also fairly common. And when clients simply aren't going to meet their long-term goals. So let's look at the first. Let's look at clients chasing short-term returns. Now, Heather mentioned it's usually a scenario where you've gone along to a brother-in-law's barbecue and he's spouting off about how he's bought 5 off-the-plan properties in Sydney and they're going through the roof. He's only put down 10%. And immediately you're feeling, oh, I feel like I'm missing out, hurting. You feel, oh, yeah, so he's generated 20% return in the last 12 months. I need to get on, recency bias. And 3, then you start seeking out confirming views about why this should play out. And immediately, your position has changed. Immediately, your view of property has changed and you want to do something about it. Or it could be a different scenario. You've got a client coming in for a 6-monthly review or an annual review and they say to you, you know what, I've just compared the performance of the portfolio I've been invested in for the last 12 months and compared it to where I was before, and we're 3% off. I want to move back. So what do you do? So there's some simple techniques. Explain the opposite. And so in Melbourne, the Melbourneites had a trouble figuring out what etisopo meant. It's literally opposite backwards. So I needed to point that out for us here in Sydney. So what does that mean? What is that technique? It's simply by asking them to change their view. Heather mentioned the Facebook experiment. We as advisors and practitioners need to understand human psychology, of course, and how do we move someone's opinion. And a simple way of doing that is actually asking them to shift hats, shifting perspective. It's not slapping them in the face with a frying pan or an old fly swat, which is, can be quite offensive. It's asking them to reconsider their position. It might be, look, you as advisor, you know what, I met a client yesterday. He's actually a Sydney town planner. He believes we're in for a crash in apartments. Why do you think he might take that view? Asking him to logically shift position, shift mindset to a different mind position. That's very effective. Now, the other one is, well, we know that our clients have different financial personalities. And at Morningstar, we feel like there's 3 factors. We believe there are 3 factors that define someone's financial personality. One being their locus of control. How much control do they feel like they have over their financial future? Do they feel like it's an internal control, they control it, or an external, other factors or external factors control their future? They might have emotional drivers. They might be driven by desire, by fear, or a need for stability. And the third one, which we're going to focus on here, is their perception of time. Do they feel time differently? Short-term or a long-term focus. And so what I'm going to get you to do is actually pull out your guide. I'm going to take you through a quick exercise, and we're going to measure how we feel in this room about time. So on page 19, you're going to see a list of 5 questions. I'm going to focus on 3 of them. The 3 that focus on our perception of time. And I want you to answer those 3 questions. So that's page 19. Question 1 reads, please mark on the line below how long a 1-year wait feels to you. Now, this is a 1-year wait to receive a lump sum of cash. Could be a bonus, could be the sale of a property, or an inheritance. How long does that feel to you? It's very subjective. Does it feel, one, extremely short or extremely long? Question 2. When you think of your life 10 years from now, how clear and detailed is your mental picture? Can you see the house you're living in? Can you see the holiday you're going to take, the car you're going to drive? Is it extremely vague or extremely clear? So just circle one of those 5. And third, how far ahead do you tend to think and plan? Do you think in weeks or months? In a 1 to 5 year time frame, or 10 years plus? So once you finish with those, take a look at the three numbers that you circled and add them up. And so you come out, obviously, to a total. And if you can add those up for me, who answered between 0 and 8? Hands up. Hands up. Yeah, very good. Don't be shy. There is no wrong answers here. What about 9 and 16? We are financial planners. Now, as I said, there's nothing wrong with an answer, but simply by starting to be aware, then we can figure out how do we solve for this challenge. Now, on page 21, you're going to see a matrix. And there's 2 factors to this matrix. We've gone through 1, how do we feel about time or our perception of time, and the second, our locus of control. So today I'm just going to focus on the long-term or short-term focus. So for those that find themselves in focusing on the long term, obviously, it makes it a lot easier for you as advisors to set a long-term plan. Typically, they will follow that plan. They can see their future very clearly. Now, the challenge, or as I would put it, the opportunity for those clients who focus on the short term is around coaching. So we know they tend to feel time more painfully than others, having to wait 12 months to buy their new car or 5 years to buy a new house. And if you really think about what happens next in that scenario, what studies have shown is those with a short-term focus tend to have higher debt to income levels because they're not willing to wait, they're not willing to save. They tend to be very challenging clients, at least initially, until you change their perception of time. And as I said, there's an opportunity to coach, and there's a couple of techniques you can use to help shift their mindset. One is actually an interesting tool, you can find these tools online, is age progression. So you can take a photo of your client's face, stick it on your computer or the software online, and progress that face by 10, 20, 30 years. So obviously, the outcome of this is better for some than others. But what you're actually doing is getting them to better relate to their future self. They're now looking at themselves and planning for their future self, looking at this picture. Another technique is to make their future more vivid. Now, I know some advisors who do this very well. And it's taking those who struggle with short-termism and asking them through the process of your planning process to become more vivid about what house they're going to buy or live in 10 years' time, exactly the car that they're going to drive or where they're going to live. Make life very clear for them and write it down. And the third one is simply awareness. So through a simple exercise like this, they can become aware of what their tendency or their bias might be to short-termism. And now you can start to measure it as you progress with them as clients through time and how your role as a financial coach or a mentor is influencing that shift on their behalf. The second one, chasing short-term returns. Well, the most recent experience is abandoning long-term plans. My mistake. Number 2, abandoning long-term plans. Typically, this happens when a market crashes. Our most recent experience being the GFC. Now, the chart here, or the poster, which is available on the Toolkit, which I'll quickly mention later, depicts what happened in the 12 to 18 months before the GFC and then what happened in the 5 years following. Now, your typical scenario might be client calls up, their portfolio is down 20, 30, 40%, and they say to you, I want out. I want to go to cash. This is way too risky, far too risky. So what do? Do you agree with them? Sell everything and go to cash? Well, the impact of that, as you can see on the dotted red line, is you're in effect locking in a 30% or 40% permanent impairment of capital. What happens if you agree with them, yep, look, it's too risky, let's get out of the bottom of the market, and let's wait. Let's wait for a better opportunity. Let's wait until the markets bounce back again. Well, if you'd only waited 12 months, you're actually missing out on a significant gain, as we saw in retrospect. And in effect, you've locked in a 30% permanent impairment of your client's capital. Now, the third option is to change the narrative. Now, Daniel has obviously spoken at length about the shift in frame, or shift in a framework. The opportunity is to guide your clients to shift their human behaviours or their mental picture of what they do at different points of a cycle. When markets have crashed or when markets are peaking. Now, this is obviously not easy. And it's very important that the investment portfolios that you've invested your clients in mirror this change of mindset. And what you're asking your clients to do, instead of feeling fear and pain at the bottom, is feel optimistic and opportunity. And likewise at the top, instead of feeling exuberation and joy and optimism, to feel fear for the future. And you can use a simple pictogram like this one to talk them through the process or the feelings that they may have at different points in the cycle. Now, the second technique is actually to ask your clients to write a letter to their future self. Now, in your guide on page 23, you can see a pro forma example of this, and it's on the screen here. Now, your opportunity as an advisor is taking a moment of strength. When your clients walked in the door, you've sat them down, everything's calm, they've agreed with your approach, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. And you're going to ask them to write a letter to their future self. Write down what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. In handwritten words, and ask them to sign it. And you're going to pull that off them at your table and stick it in their client file. Now, you may never use this, but the opportunity is in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, in 3 years' time, when they come to you and say, I want to go to cash because the market's tanked, is to pull out that letter, slide it out in front of them, and remind them of their future self, or their better self, as it was 6, 12, 2 years, 5 years down the track. It's an extremely powerful technique. Now, what happens when clients just simply aren't meeting their financial goals? Now, I'm just going to take a very quick snapshot of what this tool is. It's all in your guide, and it's quite comprehensively explained in that guide. Simply, we know if clients aren't meeting their not meeting their long-term goals, what's usually happening? Well, they're obviously not investing enough. They're not saving enough. They're spending too much. And what do we do as advisors? We usually ask them to eliminate expenses. But we know that doesn't really work. Clients are very good at finding alternative ways to spend that money and meet a need. So as you're going through the process of cash flow analysis, making sure they're saving enough, investing enough, look at, instead of eliminating expenses, which we know is really painful for clients, really pulling in that belt, I want you to understand the need that they're trying to meet by expensing or spending that money on that expense. It could be a holiday, a vacation they take every single year to Hawaii. It costs them $20,000 to take their family up there, or $15,000. You want to understand why they're going to Hawaii. Typically, they just want to spend time with their family, get into the sun, lie under a palm tree and drink cocktails. Well, funnily enough, you can actually change the strategy. You can still encourage them to go on their holiday, still encourage them to spend time with their family, spend time under the sun, drinking cocktails, but in a completely different location at half the cost. I want you to think about how do you change the strategy but still meet the need? So just to summarise, those are just 3 small tools you can use that are outlined in the guide. There are a number of more in that particular guide. So today we've gone through the financial personality quiz. I'd encourage you to go and finish those last 3, so the 4th and the 5th question off. Think about writing letters to your future self or getting your clients to write those and putting them in your client files. And looking at your personal economy worksheet, thinking about that second level of thinking, understanding that need and changing the strategy. For the final 5 minutes, I'm going to take you through the toolkit. Who signed up to your toolkit, the advisor toolkit? Stick your hand up, come on, nice and high. Yeah. Michael Goody, you've got a lot of work to do, mate. This is where we house all our cool information. All the stuff that you've seen here today will be within the toolkit. The guide is in the toolkit. All our reporting is in the toolkit. We started last year, I think there were 5 tools in there. There were well over 150 tools, reports, templates, etc. in the toolkit. I'm going to show you how to sign up very shortly. But what is it really about? It's all about arming you with materials to help in your conversations with clients. It's really what it's all about. Things like explaining fundamental financial concepts like what is compound investing? Why is it important to start early? Why is it important not to take action based on emotions? There's one particular advisor I know who's printed this out, stuck them on his walls, laminated them, and he takes his clients through these tools as he's edging into the younger accumulator market. Now, some of these tools are very good at communicating some of these fundamental concepts, and he's picking and choosing which ones he wants to put in front of clients. Now, the exciting section is the one that's hidden behind the password-protected wall. Now, this is free, so you can sign up. Typically, we don't bar many advisors from using this. But we house all our information from monthly reports, quarterly reports, trade updates, letters from Andrew Lill, the CEO of the team, the reviewing of what happened post-Brexit and why we're positioned the way that we are, what's happening within Japanese stocks, what's happened post-Trump. We're defining exactly where we're positioned and why we're positioned it to arm you with the information that you can use when you're sitting in front of clients describing why we're invested the way that we are. Importantly, we're becoming far more transparent around what we're doing within the portfolios. We've got trade updates, as many of you know, for our managed account portfolios, so you know exactly what's moving. Similarly, we're expanding what we're including within our managed fund portfolios, being far more open about what we're doing, giving you an indication of what we're selling and what we're buying within managed funds. And one of the exciting components, which we've seen a lot of interest in and a lot of use in, is the use of templates. We're writing these templates as if it's coming from you to your client. So you simply need to copy, paste, edit if need be, and send out to your client base, those clients obviously using portfolios managed by Morningstar. We want to make your lives as easy as possible, but ensuring you're staying on message with what the client should experience. So I encourage you to register. I encourage you to get Michael Lagudi out to your office to understand what's available in the toolkit in a lot more detail. Now, there are 3 simple ways to register. The easiest is to pull off your feedback form on the back side of that page, right at the bottom. You just circle yes, please auto-register me, and we'll do that for you. You can go to this website, morningstarinvestments.com.au//register-info library, or you can ask Michael Lagudi to do it for you, which is my suggestion, just to make his life hard. So thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to seeing you next year, and I'll hand it over to Peter Burns. Thank you very much.